Hello and welcome to the Chaos Standard Podcast. I'm Uncle Flacco and I'm so glad you've joined us here today. That's right, for back-to-back episodes, we have C2 back. He won again, so that's exciting. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. And it was pretty quick. It was a small group. Got to play all my matches real quick. And I guess if you win all your matches, that just ends.
With a group that small, yeah. I mean, we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but uh, I think the tournament lasted about a day.
Yeah, I'm aggressive in scheduling.
It works out well for you. And I'm not quite as aggressive, but I do also tend to get my matches done pretty quickly, so I'm right there with you. But before we get into tournament matches, I want to go over the format from last time that you won. And that format was Legions, M13, Murders at Karlov Manor, Invasion, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, and Streets of New Capenna with Battle of Wits on the ban list. And I know it's been a while, but I do have to ask you, what do you remember about last format?
Um, Honestly, I don't remember too much. I remember thinking Rafine was an early front runner as a card to build around something strong. I'm gonna have to look through what my other scraps were. Oh, I was also looking at a domain ramp deck that I really liked, with because we had Farseek with the triomes.
Yeah, I remember talking about that on the podcast episode, and I went, oh, I have to do that now.
Yeah. It played relatively well. I just didn't like that it wasn't assertive early, and I wanted to do something more assertive because I felt that was a better way to use Cryptic Coat because we still had Cryptic Coat.
Yeah, that's completely fair. Cryptocode is very strong, and building around that is very good. I can tell you from not much experience. I actually do want to talk about this briefly because during that format, I had an entire month of not having internet. So,
Ah,
uh, not only did the podcast take a hit for that, but also uh, I played almost none of the last format. So, my motivation for it was a little bit low. Editor's note, it happened again. UFO 50 has ruined my life. Go play UFO 50.
right.
Um,
Okay.
I did
Um,
actually still like look through cards and try and build decks. So I do know that last format, the format before that you won, it was incentivized for you to build a three color deck. In this last format that you just ended up winning, three color decks were almost mandatory.
it felt very reason just because of the lands you had, right? So if you're playing a two-color deck, you had um you had your Surveil land and you had the check land. But then if you wanted more duels, you also had the tri-land. And the tri-land had the ally color with the ally three color pairs. So you had both check lands to go with it, which just made sense of in terms of deck building, getting enough sources, you probably wanted to play the tri-land, and then once you're playing the tri-land, well now you might as well play the extra color just because that's how your colors end up working out.
Exactly. It's just really easy to splash a third color, and it's almost as easy to just play the third color about as much as the other two colors. So, most of the decks I made were three colors.
And also looking back at my scraps and seeing the domain ramp deck jogged my memory actually. A lot of testing and whatnot. I remember playing in some two-color aggro decks that Mason made where they were focused around Battlecry Goblin and doing shenanigans with that. Those seemed pretty good. There was a lot of talk about fight rigging decks with cards like Vane Ripper and Ziatora at the top, and also Titan of Industry. And apparently that was what I saw as the main talking point. But every time I played against it, it didn't feel like a deck that was worthy of being that talking point, if that makes sense.
I get it. I didn't personally play against it, but I can imagine that a deck like Fight Rigging would have an extremely explosive high roll.
Potential.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was kind of like the Pure Reanimator deck from Format 1. I remember getting
right.
to turn one Atraxa once during testing.
Yeah, that was an experience, all right.
I don't think the Fight Rigging deck was quite that strong, but it was probably a similar experience.
But yeah, I just remember seeing a lot of talk about that, and then the few times I played against it, feeling like, well, yeah, I can high roll, but also I can just like kill all the creatures, or I can be aggressive myself, or like obviously sometimes you will just lose to the explosive turns,
Hmm.
but it didn't feel overall like it was that big of a deal so long as I was aware it existed.
Yeah, and
Voidrend
sometimes
actually
decks like
ended up
that.
going a long way.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Sometimes decks like that just exist, right? You got to dedicate, I don't know, like 4 or 5 or more sideboard slots to it, and then they just never win a game.
Right. So I felt with my Esper deck as well, as opposed to the domain deck, I felt like the answers to a deck like Fight Rigging were better. I had access to No More Lies. I had access to Void Rend. I had access to other efficient removal spells. So I think that's the other reason I ultimately settled on that over the domain deck, even though I loved ramping into uh, Titan of Industry and then having Sanctuary Warden as something to get off of sacking Thragatusk to Vivian. That was very fun.
Yeah. Ooh, I do also want to mention that in this format, because AFR rotated in, that means that all of the creature lands were available.
Yes, those were also very strong, and that was an incentive definitely to go monocolor or close to monocolor.
Yeah, they're like easy enough to splash, but
Like I played one, but if you go close to monocolor, you can start playing all four.
yeah.
And now you're talking about a really powerful oomph to a deck that otherwise doesn't have as much flexibility as it would have if it were 2 or 3 colors. And I think
Yeah.
that's a lot of what Mazen's red green decks were taking advantage of. They were taking advantage of being able to play both Lair of the Hydra and Den of the Bugbear.
Oh yeah. And I'm pretty sure even the deck I submitted had at least one creature land in it. I might have
It would have
actually
been Den
cut
or
it.
Lair.
That's okay.
Oh,
Yeah, no. That was the type of deck that would actually really like Den of the Bugbear. I probably should have been playing it, but sometimes that happens. Going fewer colors means that you can play a lot of creature lands, and I do also think that because the creature lands died to both Power Word Kill and Long Goodbye, that they're not quite as good as they could have been, but a utility land is still a utility land, so
right. It still tapped for mana at some point,
yeah.
which is awesome. And even in this case, colored mana too.
Yeah, not all utility lands tap for colored mana.
I think it's really easy to underestimate how strong a land can be, even if the effect is ultimately minor or overcosted, given that it taps for mana, especially if it taps for a color. If it taps for a color and has an effect, it often doesn't even matter necessarily that the effect is that slow.
Yeah. Like I know like even personally I think that Cave of the Frost Dragon is a relatively weak card in that cycle,
Oh, it
but
absolutely
it's
is.
still a white land that turns into a flyer.
Yeah, if you're playing heavy white, you're putting some number of those in your deck, and if you're mono white, you're probably playing all four.
Yeah.
Even though, as you said, it's probably the weakest card in that cycle by quite a bit.
Mhm. I do also want to mention a fairly unique type of effect that tends to happen in a format like this, where it's like the same people playing over and over again, where a deck might be good in one format and going into the next format, it might be just as good, if not better, but people stop playing the deck for whatever reason.
Mm. Do you
Like
have a deck in mind with uh
For me, it's Volt Strider. I think that Volt
oh, the
Strider
Volt Strider
getting
deck
access to
built?
Factor Fiction was a huge boon to that deck, and I was just less excited about it because I had played played a bunch of Old Strider in the previous format.
I don't know. I never really. If I like a card, I still like a card, even if it's a new format.
Yeah.
So I played Learn Lesson 2 seasons in a row. I'm playing, spoiler alert, Rafine 2 seasons in a row.
And like also, I think the deck that I played in that previous season, which is just playing all of the best mythics and Naya colors in all one deck. I think getting Fires of Yavimaya was really good for that deck. Like Hasty Agrascos and Hasty Anzrag are just game-winning threats on their own, but
I mean, Hasty Anthrag is so much damage.
it's so much damage. And Agrascos is a straight-up removal spell.
Yeah.
That's how I won a game against a control deck during the tournament. Like I had it wasn't Fires of Yavimaya at the time, it was Rhythm of the Wild. And so I
Hmm.
just gave my Agrascos haste. I attacked in and I exiled I don't even remember what creature it was. It was just like a guy. And
Right. But
then
that's all you need.
yeah, and then it got Fiend Huntered or whatever the Fiend Hunter was in that format. And then I just found a removal spell and then
But then you got to
I got
attack
my
again.
hangers back and attacked and got the other Fiend Hunter and then
Yeah. Seems like they had a real bad time.
oh, it was awful. They felt so bad.
Yeah.
Well, since you spoiled it a little bit, let's talk about your deck. Rafine? What's that?
Well, Rafine is quite the demon, as it were.
I
Nice three
get
color
that.
build around. And it also, because it wanted you to be assertive, like I said at the beginning, it made really good use of Cryptic Coat. Also, getting to put a bunch of counters on your Cryptic Coat, pretty good. So that was kind of the start of the idea. Obviously, you also have no more lives. I was really impressed with Lazav from Huey's blue-black deck from the season before. I believe that was season 4. So in the 2-drop slot, that just seemed like an easy fit, and it played really well. I played a couple of cases to take advantage of both Novice Inspector and Lazav making clues to generate some extra 1/1s. 10th District Hero played quite well, leveled it up many times. I believe you got to play against the final form once or twice.
Actually, I can't remember if you leveled it up all the way. I'm pretty sure you
Maybe
did.
maybe it was against a different match, but I know I leveled it up all the way at least once or twice, and it made a huge difference in that game, just being able to block with impunity.
Or just like a 2 mana 2/3 is already good.
Right. Especially when you're doing Rafine things, getting extra counters on it. And
Mm-hmm.
then it becomes a 4/4 with Vigilance. Vigilance was kind of a big deal in that lots of people were playing assertive beatdown decks. You had your pile of idiots. SPF was playing elves.
Mm-hmm.
Huey was playing white-green aggro. So just having a big giant Vigilance dude mattered a lot.
Yeah.
Teysa having Death Touch mattered a lot. Like all these
Yep.
little things that like you wouldn't otherwise look twice at just mattered so much. Long Goodbye was an all-star as just an efficient removal spell that they couldn't do anything about. Void Rend, like when we were talking about the fight rigging earlier, was just a really nice find as 2 in the main, 2 in the side, just in a catch-all. And then the mana was just, it was good. Played a bunch of check lands, played a couple of surveil lands, played my full 4 Triome, played some basics. Colors worked out well.
Yeah, that sounds about like the mana base in my current format deck, except there's no surveil
No
lands.
check. Or no surveil lands, yeah, those are gone.
Yeah.
Bad.
We actually rotated back into checks. Can you believe that? I can. Checks are in a lot of different sets.
I think we have checks in both because we had checks from M13 and now we have checks from M12. So we're going to keep checks for another season.
Yeah. I also did not know how strong Lazav was until I played against Huey's deck. Lazav just creates so much advantage, and playing Volt Strider, it did hate on the graveyard, so that was a little bit frustrating as well.
Also very funny against fight rigging.
Yeah.
You kill their guy, now you have a 6/2 with menace or a 6/6 with flying. Oh, I never got to do anything fun with Tenacious Underdog. He just kind of was never drawn, and he got sided out in a lot of matchups. So that was a
Oh,
little sad.
interesting. Yeah.
He felt like my weakest too, because 10th District Hero really overperformed, and then Lazav was just really good value. So if I'm gonna side out some dudes, it's gonna be Tenacious Underdog, which felt really weird, but
Yeah.
that's how And that's where it ended up.
It has a lot of good utility, but I could see with so many other efficient threats, Tenacious Underdog isn't exactly the most efficient. So if you
I
just
think the other
need,
thing
yeah,
was that I generated so many clues. So I'm spending my extra mana on that instead of his blitz ability.
right,
That was the other thing that I was noticing is that even in games where I didn't draw him, I probably wouldn't have used him that much just because I'm sacking clues and generating value that way.
yeah,
So I think if I were to make any changes after playing all those games, I think it might just be to cut Tenacious Underdog for something else.
yeah, that sounds fair. I definitely put Tenacious Underdog in a lot of my decks, but I was doing different things than you were, so.
Also, shoutouts to 4 portable holes in the sideboard. Came in clutch.
Mm-hmm. Like, it's definitely better in constructed because constructed decks tend to be a lot
There are usually
smaller.
more cards, which usually means more efficient things.
Yeah. But if
So
you're
having an
going up
efficient
against a
answer
pile of 1 and 2 drops like you are against like Huey's deck, for example, then it does a lot of good.
was very good against Huey. It was very good against you. Very good
Uh,
against SPF.
yeah, it was very good against me.
Took away all your fun enchantments.
It took away my Sheevan Harvest.
No, I want my lands.
Did I have Artifact Hate? Yeah, I was playing Artifact Mutation in the sideboard.
I thought that was main. No, that was the enchantment mutation thing.
Yeah, I was
Whatever.
playing Aura Mutation in the main board.
Yeah. Rude.
It was, I mean, part of that was because if I resolved multiple copies of Shivan Harvest, I could just convert one of
Turn
them
one of
into
them
a
into
couple
2 more sacks.
Saprolings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that deck was very sweet and did not do exactly what I wanted in terms of being a good deck. It was a
I
fun
think
deck, though.
I think in a world where people were playing more control decks and domain decks, where they were leaning into like Farseek or like a Day of Judgment, I think we had a 4 mana White Ras. I can't remember which one we had, but we had one of them. I think if decks were leaning more into that kind of play, I think you would have been a lot better suited.
Yeah.
Instead, we were all just a bunch of assertive aggro decks.
Yeah. I think MKM might have had no witnesses, I think is a 4 mana
No,
board wipe.
M13 had a Day of Judgment or Wrath of God. I'm fairly certain. Because I remember when I was building the domain deck, I was looking at available Wrath options and opted for Ill-Timed Explosion instead of whatever the M13 Wrath was.
Oh, I thought you said in the episode it was the 5 mana
I
collect
had that
evidence
as well.
board wipe.
Yeah, I had that as well.
Hmm.
But I was playing 2 Ill-Timed Explosions and 3 of the Destroy the Evidence.
Because I know Streets of New Capenna also has a 4 mana
Yeah,
board
it
wipe.
has
Like Depopulate?
Depopulate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it was just Depopulate, because apparently Wrath of God is not an M13. So
I know
maybe it was just
M12
Depop.
has one, but I don't remember
Yeah, M12
M13
has Day
having
of
one.
Judgment. But yeah, if there were decks playing slower games, I think you playing your red enchantment, Sheevan Harvesting, is that the name?
Yeah, Shivan Harvest.
You, you go Novice Inspector into Sheevan Harvesting, and your control opponent probably just cries.
Absolutely. For people at home that do not know, Shivan Harvest is 1 in a red for an enchantment, and it reads 1 in a red, sacrifice a creature, destroy target non basic land.
Very rude.
I
Extremely
think that
rude.
card still reads good to this day.
It definitely has some powerful applications.
Yeah.
It just requires a slow game, I think. If your opponent goes 1-2-3, you kind of die because you're playing a lot of expendable dudes, and they're probably not good at blocking.
Yeah. Like I
And
threw
then once
in
you sack them, and even if your opponent has no more lands, they still have their curve out,
yeah,
and you've been spending your mana to kill their lands, so they're probably killing you.
yeah, for the more aggressive decks, I was reliant on Trelasara or Agris costs getting rid of the really big guys. But it did not always work out that way because I did not play a ton of copies of those cards.
I think I remember your exact words being, "You played good creatures, and I can't beat those."
I, I probably did say that.
I wish someone was playing a control deck because I had 4 Nimble Arsonists in my sideboard just waiting.
Whew.
I was ready, but alas, I think Mason was playing a control deck actually. Now that I think about it, I think that's what he ended up on. Actually, no, he didn't
Um,
even play, did he?
I don't remember
It
if he
might have
did
been
or
the
not.
previous season when he was playing the Grixis thing, the Planeswalker deck that he had. Yeah, I think that was the previous season, and I'm conflating it. So yeah, I don't think anyone played a control deck, and I just wanted the Nimble Larcenous sim. That's all I wanted to do.
That's fair. That would have been very funny. Oh, I do also want to talk about the tournament structure. We only had, I think, 6 people sign up for
Yes,
that, so
a total of 6.
we
So it
we
was just
decided
one big
to,
round robin.
yeah. For the current season, we're recording this on day 1 of the tournament. We have 8, so we're back to pools into Top Cut, but
I
um,
could just play everybody in.
yeah.
Oh, if I had a good deck that I felt confident about, I would say I could go 7-0, but I don't. I did some silly, ill-advised things, and now here we are.
It's okay. You can take some formats off. That just means we get more unique guests on the podcast.
By that you mean Huey again?
Hey, who knows? It could be me by myself saying how good of a
Yeah,
job I did. That feels weird. I probably shouldn't do that.
it would be funny.
It would
You'd
be
have
funny.
Mason interview you.
I could. That might be what I do actually.
See, we're all cooking with gas.
Yeah. Well, I think we've probably exhausted topics for last format. So to wrap things up, I want to talk a little bit about the current format. The current format is Invasion, AFR, New Capenna, Time Spiral with the time shifted sheet, M12, and Guilds of Ravnica. Would you like to share any scraps that you maybe did not submit for the tournament?
Okay, so I started with Rafine again, because Rafine's still here.
Mm
However, I hated all the 2-drops. I was, at that, when I started, I was not ready to accept Ledger Shredder as a reasonable card, when not, like, completely built around with a bunch of cantrips and stuff.
hmm. Mm hmm.
I wasn't ready to accept that yet. So I scrapped Esper Rafine. We did have Ponder, Ancestral Visions, Day of Judgment, Mana Leak. So I started looking at a blue-white control deck, probably still playing black, because we still had the checks, we still had the Triome. So I went that direction. Kind of didn't like it. Looked at a blue-black mid-range deck, because we had the Surveil package with Disinformation Campaign, that was a standard deck.
Mm hmm.
Didn't like the 2-drops. Scrapped it. And throughout all of this, I had we have the Titans, right? So that was like my idea of a top end for the control or for the blue-black mid-range. And that's been lurking around in the back of my mind. But the other thing that was lurking was we had Flagstones of Trokir with Triomes, and we still had Tribal Flames. And I couldn't let that go. So once I accepted Ledger Shredder as a reasonable 2-drop, I went back to Rafine, but now I'm playing red 2 for Tribal Flames. And it's a bad deck.
Oh, I love that actually.
It's oh man. So my other 2-drop is we still have Tenacious Underdog,
Mm hmm.
still a 2 of, still not sure about it, but I also have Triumphant Adventurer.
Ooh.
That's how far I dug into the 2-drop rabbit hole.
Did you lean into like Nadar or anything?
No, it's just Triumphant Adventure. I just thought it would be fun to put counters on that.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fair.
we also have Thief of Sanity, and I love me a Thief of Sanity. Um,
Incredible card.
but yeah, I'm playing. My mana base is horrendous. I have 5 red sources if you don't count any Flagstones of Trokir.
Oh no.
Um, I can just loot them away. It's no problem.
That's okay. You can fix for red by going
Playing my
into
second
Tomb of
Flagstone.
Annihilation and then going into Oubliette. You can sack a land.
Yeah.
Does that count?
I mean, if I stack the Flagstone, absolutely. I'm playing 1 Jet Mirror's Garden so that I can get red and green um,
Of course.
hype for my Tribal Flames
I
in my
wish
Esper deck.
I wish I did more with Tribal Flames. It is such a strong card.
Right, that
And
was my thinking. And like
yeah.
playing it with Flagstones, I tried to look at like what maybe a red-white or a Naya deck would look like. And then like you get Flagstone or you have Flagstone find Fiend's Tower instead. as
Hmm.
like your way to get your additional 2 damage. But I just didn't like anything that was going on there. Everything, it didn't seem like it was doing enough. So I went back to Rafine, which I think is ill-advised. I think it's going to lose every game it plays, but it's going to be funny, maybe, if I get someone with Tribal Flames out of nowhere.
I believe in you. I believe that with the way the tournament is set up, you could even top cut.
If I win with this monstrosity of a deck.
I mean, personally, I want to win, and I think I have a decent shot at winning, but I do hope you at least come close. And if you do win, you could come back for the three in a row episode.
Talk about how great 5 red source Tribal Flames decks are.
Yeah.
But the other problem with the deck is that I'm playing 9 tap lands. So,
Oh, 9 tap lands in your creature beatdown deck.
yep, yep.
Uh, I've made that mistake before. Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna have an adventure here. Hopefully Ponder saves me, because Ponder is in the format, by the way. Hello.
Oh, I love Ponder. Yeah, Ponder's legal. Dread Return's legal. All of the Titans are legal. There's a lot of fun stuff that hopefully we'll talk about in whatever wrap up episode we have for this format.
But yeah, we got Ponder into second flagstones, shuffle them away. Easy.
Oh, love it.
Easy.
Mwah. That's awesome though. Thank you for coming back on. It
Thank you
was
for having
wonderful
me.
to have you again. And
Can't wait to lose horribly.
yeah. Uh, Hopefully I won't lose horribly with you. Mostly because we're not in the same pool together.
We can't both lose horribly at the same time, right?
Uh, yeah, we'll go with that. And I thank you, the listener, for uh, getting to the end of this episode. As always, if you want to join us, a link will be in the description, and we would love to have you here. Anyways, that's all I have for now. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. I know what I'm saying sometimes.
Probably more than sometimes.
Maybe. It's yet to be seen. Uh,